This may surprise a lot of people, except not really if you've known me during high school and a little bit earlier than that, but I haven't actually seen any of the Rocky films, nor have I seen Raging Bull. I mean, I get the joke is that Stallone and De Niro were both in famous boxing movies, but that's kind of about where it ends, because I haven't actually seen them. So yeah, that element of the humor is moderately lost on me, but thankfully it wasn't a driving force for the film. I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but that's really the only opening quip I could come up with for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Now, those of you who were listening to the SP Romney Show, for those of you who don't live in Utah, the SP Romney Show is a late-night radio talk show that my dad does, and I was on the show because both my dad and I had gone to see Grudge Match, and we had a wonderful time. And really, I didn't really have any major expectations going into the film. I mean, it was kind of the case of, oh, it could be funny, but given that I've been a critic for a couple of years now, I've kind of learned to be cautious when going into comedies, because it may look really funny in the trailers, but I've had moments where it looked funny in the trailers, and then I end up being severely disappointed, like I was with Identity Thief. And so, going into it, I was cautiously optimistic. That's the best way to describe it. I was cautiously optimistic going in. Coming out of the film, I was satisfied with what I saw. I mean, it was actually funny. I mean, it didn't resort to some of the crude humor that we've seen in stuff like the Hangover films, nor did it resort to the Happy Madison route, assuming that the audience can't count past 2. Try saying that 3 times fast. And it also didn't try to be one of those comedies that relied solely on references. It had some really good, really well-written jokes. And they also felt organic and really played well with how the characters actually interacted with each other. One thing I definitely have to say is that I like Kevin Hart. I mean, you've seen like comedians like Chris Tucker and Chris Rock, and they tend to be a little more exaggerated and kind of go all out, whereas Kevin Hart, although his reactions are kind of large and out there and you could argue somewhat stereotypical, he manages to keep things kind of grounded a little bit. At least that's what I noticed with Kevin Hart's performance. And really, that's the only real major thing I can say, is that the film was funny. The only problem I had with the film was the ending. It's not that it was a bad ending, it's that it felt kind of abrupt. They almost kind of started rolling the credits a little too early, and then they did the little vignettes that they often like inject into the credits to kind of keep people sitting in the seats to keep them watching. And it did it twice, even though it only really needed to do it with the second vignette, which actually has a really, really hilarious cameo by 2 well-known boxers. I'm not going to say who, not going to say why, it's a funny joke. But really, that's like the only problem I really had with it, is that the ending was a bit abrupt. I mean, we do see who wins, but it's just a case of it didn't really fade off. It just kind of just went, yeah, cut, oh, vignette. And then it just wasn't quite sure how it was gonna end. It was probably a case of, oh, well, we don't really know how to really end this, even though the final boxing match was actually really good to watch. That was the only real gripe I could really find with the film, because really, I liked it. It was a funny movie. And between a lot of the other films that are coming out on Christmas, this is definitely one I would recommend seeing on Christmas. This is the kind of film that you can go with your family. It's not a family movie by any means. I mean, it is for adults, but if you're a family with like older adults, then this is the film I recommend you go see Christmas Day. Compared to the other contenders we've got, this is the one I would recommend, because it's funny, everyone gets some good laughs out of it, and it doesn't resort to all the really crude humor. There is some crude jokes, but it doesn't really rely so heavily on the crude humor like other comedies that have come out recently. So really, I wholeheartedly recommend it. The only gripe was with the editing of the ending, but even then, that was a pretty small nitpick when you look at the film as a whole. So really, it was great. It was enjoyable, and I liked it. That's all I can really say about it. That said, I give Grudge Match a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, the editing of the ending was a bit iffy, and I guess another real thing is that some of the CGI added stuff, since they had to kind of try to splice in younger looking versions of Robert De Niro and Sylvester Stallone, were a little bit iffy at best, but again, those are like really minor nitpicks. Other than that, the film is great. I highly recommend it. Even if you haven't seen Rocky or Raging Bull, if you're like me and haven't seen either of those films, you'll still enjoy it. It's a funny movie, it's a good movie. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Tune in Friday for my review of Saving Mr. Banks. And before anyone asks, I can't do the Project for Awesome this year. I know it's today, but my schedule, although I'm technically no longer doing classes, I have some stuff that I've been commissioned to do, and that's going to take up more of my time. But as a consolation, not on Friday, but on Saturday, I'll be creating a video where I talk about the top 5 Project for Awesome videos. So don't worry, I'll be watching, seeing what you guys produce, and yeah, I'll see y'all next time.